Welcome to Wealth and Wellness with Grace Nabasabala.
Hey guys, welcome back to Wealth and Wellness with Grace. Today I'm bringing you some challenges that affect us as immigrants in a foreign country. So stick around to hear all the negative things that affect us and also how we can combat some of those negative things. And the first is colonization. We don't like to accept the fact that colonization happened, but it did. And we might not think that it's actually affecting us to this day, especially once you move out of your country, but it actually follows us. Because think about what happens back home. Every time you hear all these wars, whatever is still happening, all the exploitation, all that is still affecting us. Because then the more we continue compensating for that, that's affecting us, not just our health, it's affecting our wallets, billions of dollars that we have to send home for support, you see, for relief. That's too stressful. So we have to think about ways to combat that. And until then, we continue having challenges in a foreign country. Other thing is education challenges. Most times when us as immigrants go to a foreign country, we come here at different stages. We come here with different professions. You see, sometimes we don't even have an education. So not having that similar background can be a challenge. And even if you have an education background, coming to a foreign country, most times it requires us to go back to school or even learn a trade. So if you're not open to doing that, that will actually continue impacting you economically. Because if you're always trying to struggle with the wages and also to prove yourself, when you don't have that certification to prove that you went to this school, that you earned this particular degree or diploma or this certificate, that can be challenging, especially in the job market. So making sure that whatever stage you came at, even if you had a doctorate in your country, coming here and going back to school, realizing that it's not going to be long to go to school. Just think about what course can you take. You see, what certificate, what specialty can you engage in? Anything will help you, but you're not taking anything, will continue challenging you in a foreign country. One of the biggest things is language barrier. Where we come from, we have several languages. You see, and you're talking about over 50 countries in Africa, and each country has its own language. So say, for example, in Uganda, we speak over 20 languages. Can you imagine? So one country speaking all this language. So that's a lot of confusion, a lot of barrier in communication, and yet communication is one of the biggest things we can help us unite us, you see, and also help us grow. Because if you come here and you don't know the most utilized language, in the US it's English, in other places in the world it can be French, other places it's Spanish. So if we don't know most of those languages, it's really impacting us. Because once you go in the job market, they're not going to hire you if you can't speak their language. So that's challenging us as soon as we end up in that foreign country, and that causes a lot of us to struggle to get to learn the foreign language and also to get to prove ourselves that we belong there, you see? Because languages unite. So we need to learn, and our countries need to work together to make sure that we have all these languages in our curriculums, in schools, to help us such that when we navigate other places in the world, that we can fit in and we can belong and we can thrive. Another thing is the discrimination and bias. This is a really big problem. Most times when you come to a new country, a new world, so foreign, sometimes that discrimination and bias is, sometimes people don't know that they have the discrimination and bias. You see, because I've talked to, sometimes people are really respected and they say some things which were really discriminatory, but they didn't even think it was discriminatory until I had to explain it to them that it really were. You see? So one of my professors in school, I have a good example about this. One of my professors in nursing school, she's Caucasian, but she always loved African heritage. She was always engaged in the African heritage and everything like that. So I remember when I went to Uganda, I literally told her, I was like, I'm going to Uganda this semester, and da 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 da. And then she asked me, is it safe? And it took me aback, because where I went to nursing school is literally one of the places that you have to make sure that you care for where you're going. And this is in the US, because violence is left and right. In New Orleans, Louisiana, you see, statistics for crimes is high in that area where I actually went to school at. But this same professor, you see, asking me if it was going to be safe in Africa, because we still have that bias. And whatever we watch on the news, you see, it's also pretty much ingraining that bias. So we have to always continue educating people, know that sometimes people don't know. You see, so continue educating and letting them know that maybe in certain parts, it might not be safe, but where I'm going such and such, and it's okay. You see, but also back home, we need to do better, because we can't continue doing the same thing, expecting different results. So working together, combating all this violence is very important, because until then, we'll continue dealing with the same things and nothing's going to change. The other thing is the immigration status. So once you go to a foreign country, the first thing you always have to be reminded of is your documentation status. It can be really frustrating. It can be so stressful, because most times you're always looking at your shoulder, you see, especially it doesn't matter what documentation status you are. Because even as a student, I always was looking on my shoulder, you see, because you really don't know. You come here, you might be a visitor, you might be a business visa, it might be anything, you see, a student visa. So having the immigration status, whatever the status is, before you actually get your full citizenship or even your green card holder, that status sometimes can be intimidating, but that also is what separates us. I don't know if these foreign countries actually do it, knowing that that's going to be one of the things that challenge us in a foreign country to make it harder on us. But we need to continue educating, continue advocating for our rights in foreign countries, because we do add a lot of value. Because most times when we go to foreign countries, we're really increasing a lot of value. So we need to continue empowering ourselves and also letting people know who we are, what we are about, how we are adding value, and also continue growing. Because if we grow and we prove ourselves enough, hopefully they'll understand and they'll make sure that all those limitations are at least limited. So we'll continue breaking those barriers the more we continue advocating for ourselves and do better in foreign countries. But working on that paperwork status is important, always doing the right thing, and also working together to make sure that we have the stuff together. So if you're here as a student, finding out, okay, what resources are there for students? You're here in a business, what resources are there for businesses? Because they have so many resources, instead of hiding and struggling by yourself. Which also brings me to the next point, which is building community. In most cases, it's sad that we don't have really a community. You see, most times I hear this, I go to so many places and all I hear is, this is the Ugandan community, this is the Somalian community, this is such and such community, and I'm like, we're already fighting and so divided back home. Why are we still divided in a foreign country? You see, you don't see that from other foreigners, right? But we do that. So this is the Nigerian community. That's why right now it's like I'm always intertwined in so many communities that you never know where I belong, because I feel like we can be a community together. There's no reason why we continue separating ourselves. No wonder they are dividing and conquering, because they've done it for so long, and it's easier for them to continue doing that because we are enforcing it. It's an individual thing, you see? So us saying, oh, I'm only associated with such and such community, that's limiting us. So to me, it's the people. So if it's good people, I'm going to associate with them. So making sure if another person from a different community needs help, being there, because knowing that we are here by ourselves most of the time. A good example is recently I met this lady from Cameroon. This lady is older. She's been here since 2014 in Hammond, where I live, literally a few miles away from my house. But I never come to contact with this lady. So I felt really terrible because one of my contractors had called me and asked, Grace, would you like to meet this lady? She says she doesn't know any African in Hammond, but you live in Hammond, and I know you're from Africa. So I was like, can you please give her my number? You see, there's no reason that somebody should be around us and we don't even know them. You see, we might be so busy, which I understand that part so well, because I can be busy too, but we have to make time. Because when I asked this lady, I finally got a chance to meet her, and we interacted, and I asked her who are her closest relatives. Do you know her closest relatives are all the way in Germany? Anything can happen to her. Anything can happen to her. And we are not there because we're so busy. So I know we come here and hustle, and everybody gotta do what they gotta do, but we gotta do better. And so that put me into thinking, what can we do to build a community? So instead of waiting for somebody else, I figured, you know what? I need to put matters in my own hands because I've been literally waiting for somebody to do it. Hammond is a small town in Louisiana. We are not really, it's not a big state anyway. And I don't know a lot of people, especially from Uganda in Louisiana either. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to put together a community. It's going to be an African community. So as of today, we have a new community on Facebook. It's called Louisiana AfriConnect. So I'm hoping everybody in Louisiana who is from Africa, African background, or even a friend to Africans, please join that group so we can continue supporting, we can continue growing, we can continue sharing ideas, networking, because that's a big thing. Because most times we're not thinking about the potential of working, you see, together. That's slowing us behind. So until we realize the potential we have in our community, that's how we thrive. Because as an individual, you can go first, but as a community, we can go far. And the other thing, when you think about building a community, think about the economic factors that you can actually improve upon, like jobs. Do you know how many times when somebody told me, oh, Grace, I have somebody who I know who's coming to Louisiana, do you happen to have a job? Do you see that? So if we don't have a community, you see, because it will be easier to post it in the community. We have a new person looking for a job. We need somebody for assistance with housing, you see? So I'm really planning to put together structures for housing, whereby when somebody comes, I don't care where, they'll have housing. You see, because there's no reason that people are going to be on the street, and we can help them with housing. So please, I know we all want to make it and be successful on our own, but I know just helping one person, you never know where this, whatever the seed is, it will land. So I hope we can work together in this wonderful community and build Louisiana instead of every time I hear people come here for school for different reasons and before I know it, they're off to another state. And not just off to that first state. Guess what? They'll continue moving to different states, trying to first of all fit in or find their footing wherever they go. But if we have a community, maybe they won't have to keep looking so far. You see? So somebody has to do it. And so I hope you can join me in building this wonderful community. And thanks again for everybody who's watching and for the support and for everything you all are doing out there. Please continue to subscribe. Please continue to like and comment and tell me what you think below, because this is really important. Why we haven't thrived like we should in this country. It could be one reason or another, but some of those reasons were actually my personal challenges, because when I came here, I've shared a few times how I ended up being homeless, and I didn't know anybody who would help me, and the few Africans I knew who would help me did not have the resources to help. So if you had the community, I figured, you know what? If this challenge happened to me, I'm sure it's happening to somebody else. And until we fix this problem, it's going to continue happening. So it's up to us to fix it. So until next time, I hope you stay blessed.
Thank you.